Welcome back to Charleston County RoadWise and More. We're talking about CARTA, which is receiving a portion of the half-cent sales tax, which comes under the heading of transportation. And of course, we have the greenway system and conservation of green space, and we'll be talking about those kinds of things in future meetings. And when we get together with you, and in these kinds of meetings, I guess I'm talking about. But we wanted you to know that the CARTA system is doing fairly well as a consequence of receiving these dollars, and they have good leadership. And I want to tell you about a young lady that I'm interviewing today. She is Christine Wilkinson, and she's the interim executive director of CARTA. It's so good talking with you. You have a lot of information.
Thank you.
A lot has happened over the years as it regards transportation, public transportation, for people, especially in South Carolina. We just haven't been too interested in doing all that. It's a cab or a car and that's it. But you think that the way it was run in the past was a good idea, these types of transportation systems where electric companies owned or utilities companies owned the local transit systems, or is this better?
Well, I think this is better, and the way it sort of evolved was, you know, back when electric companies were just doing electricity and electric trolleys, they did make a good bit running public transportation. And so when they would develop their franchise agreements with cities or counties, they wanted the ability to do that. So as we moved away from electric trolleys and to rubber tire buses in the 40s and such, what they found over time was that operating them without electricity and with gasoline and with motorized vehicles, the return just wasn't as good. And so it really declined after World War II into the 50s and 60s. And so most transit systems at that time that were run by power companies, they really didn't want to do that anymore because it was losing money for them.
And that was a responsibility to the communities where they were located, that they would provide a service, but they lost money.
Right, and so in the 60s and 70s, more and more you saw where public entities such as counties and cities were taking over the transit systems and taking them public. And that really continued on through the 70s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, and really Charleston was the second to the last in the country to move away from being operated by a power company. I think Columbia, South Carolina was the last.
You know, I've heard of communities like Greenville that completely let it go. I mean, they said it's just too much. We can't keep it running. We're eating up a lot of local dollars and tax dollars. We just can't do that. That won't happen here, will it?
No, with the half-cent sales tax funds, we can maintain a viable transit system. We can have access to federal funds that are allocated for this type of activity by community and state funds as well. And in Greenville, you know, really they used to be sort of comparably sized with regard to ridership and their system, and they're much smaller now. And that's really due to a lack of local support. I know, though, that the city of Greenville is very committed to trying to improve and grow the system, and they're doing a lot of things to move in that direction. But it's just a clear benefit what these half-cent sales tax funds have done for CARTA. When you look at our ridership, over $4 million a year, the amount and level of service that we have, it's much higher than other places in the state.
One of the things that I really think is good that you were doing and your office has been doing, and other cities have tried these same kinds of things, and that is giving folks an opportunity to come aboard one of the buses like we are today and see for themselves what it's like, so that maybe they can get some interest in riding to work or to play on a city bus.
Well, we're going to be doing, actually we have a lot of marketing efforts around that in the short term, where we're going to be asking folks to give us a try. But one of the things we just did was on Veterans Day, November the 11th, we had a free fare for all veterans and active military personnel. And the board of directors voted that at their last meeting, and we had over 1,000 passengers that rode free that day that were veterans or active military, and it just goes to show what a big part of the community they are.
Is there any way to know if you've gotten those folks back?
No, we wish we could track people, but you know, it's difficult to track people individually. But we continue to see ridership grow, and as I said before, it was up 17% in October.
If the public says to you, we need a route to get to thus and so place, Are you open? Is CARTA open to hearing that? And then what will it take to get a bus to run a particular route that is needed by so many people?
Well, we certainly are open to that. You can certainly contact our staff if you have a group that is interested in the service. The more support you have, really, probably the better. And we can take these requests to our board of directors, and they can review things in context of the budget and revenue and partnerships and that sort of thing and see if it's feasible. We don't have a lot of expansion planned at this time because we're operating literally everything we can with the funding that we receive. I believe it's at about 95% of the funds we receive goes straight to operations. So we're trying to maximize every dollar we can to have as much service as we can for the public. But we can always look at new partnerships, and partnerships can bring new service. So we want to hear from everyone.
How many buses in the system right now, today?
We have just slightly over 100 deployed in different types of services, and we operate, I believe it's just over 224,000 hours of service on an annual basis.
Is there some way that you hear from the public periodically? Do you hold public meetings so that you can hear from your riders and others who might be interested?
Yes, we have a public comment period at our board meetings. We're also on Facebook and Twitter. We definitely like to hear from folks on Twitter, and we post information and updates on service and meetings and marketing events and that kind of thing on there. But we also have our website, which is www.ridecarta.com, and you can send us emails to askcarta@ridecarta.com. You can contact any of our staff at any time. Our phone numbers are all listed there. And so any questions, concerns, news services, anything at all related to CARTA, we're happy to hear from the public.
I picked up a friend at the airport and noticed that there was a bus that came from downtown or from somewhere in Charleston all the way out to the airport. You're not kidding around, are you?
No, you can take a bus from the airport. It will come downtown, goes down Dorchester Road, and then on to downtown. And when you look at cab fare, it's a really reasonable alternative to that. But it's a good connection, and the airport's been gracious enough to give us a good space to park near to the entrances, and so we have good access there.
What's your biggest challenge right now as interim director?
Well, really, we want to maintain the level of service that we have today, and we'd like to expand it. We have some vehicles in our fleet we need to replace, and so we're looking for grant opportunities to do that. And really, it's to take what we have today and try to make the most of it that we can and be as efficient as we can to provide as much service to the community as we can.
And getting those folks from the community to take a bus and leave the driving to your company, I think I stole that from somebody, but taking a bus as opposed to using, gas is expensive. And so this is a good alternative, I would think. And to get from one place to another, is it fairly long? Is it a long ride to get from point to point or from point A to point B?
Well, I'm not going to lie. It in some cases can be longer than driving. One thing we're very excited about is on our website, we're going to be relaunching it in just a couple of weeks. And we've partnered with the Regional Planning Council to get all of our data into Google. So what you can soon do on our website is using Google Transit, plan your trip. And it'll tell you how far to walk, where the bus stop is, where to stand, how long the bus ride will be, where you need to change buses, and you can literally print it out and take it with you. Now, would we like to see faster service? Yes, most certainly. Our buses have the same challenges and congestion as everybody else does. So we do think the stress factor goes down. But on an annual basis, if someone were to opt into transit as opposed to an automobile, it costs like $9,000 a year to operate a personal vehicle for commuting and that sort of thing. And, some of those costs will still be there even if you just opt into transit sometimes, but you can definitely save on gas.
That brings up the thought about the expense for buying a bus. I don't know where they make these buses, but certainly it must be a tremendous expense, and to keep them updated and to make sure they run properly, all that has to be done as well.
Yes, we actually contract out for the operation of our system. Both the driving staff and the maintenance staff are all employees of a private company, and that company is Veolia Transportation. They're probably the largest service provider of that type in the United States, and they're a professional company with hundreds and hundreds of years of experience. And so in doing that, we save just in that regard by privatizing the system. You can save anywhere from 10 to 15% of the cost. So that was done quite some time ago, but that's one of the ways that we try to stay efficient.
We'll be back with some further discussion on CARTA with Christine Wilkinson, who is the Interim Executive Director of CARTA, as soon as I get off of this bus.